So we're fortunate today to have with us Cat Uden of Oceana. She's the South Florida campaign organizer, very well versed in the issue and a real successful activist on the issue. And we're going to start off with her presentation. So.
Just one more thing, housekeeping item is that we are recording this.
Yes.
So we can put it on our YouTube for those people who weren't able to join us. So
and also if you have questions, because we're going after her presentation, we'll start having a discussion and some questions. Please put them in the chat. Okay, all righty. Kat, are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you everybody for attending, and I hope you were able to see the story of plastic film. It's very compelling. There's a lot in there that's disturbing, but hopefully it makes everybody want to take action. I know I've heard feedback from a lot of people that they want to do something about it now, and it brought to light a lot of issues that they didn't realize surrounded plastics they never thought about before. So thank you for having this screening. And actually I'm doing a youth plastics advocacy training on Saturday for younger people, and it included a link to Story of Plastic for them to watch before our workshop. So if you missed it and for some reason the link that you got doesn't work, let me know and I can provide you the link, and that's available until Saturday as well. So I'm going to do a short PowerPoint and then we can open it up to discussion. All right, are you able to see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right. So my name is Catherine Uden. I'm the South Florida campaign organizer for Oceana. If you're not familiar with Oceana, we are the world's largest international ocean conservation nonprofit organization solely working on ocean protection. So you can go to our website. That's the North American website right there, usa.oceana.org. We're also in various countries. We work on various campaigns depending on what the issues are in that country. So in North America, we have campaigns to stop the shark fin trade, to stop the offshore drilling plan, to protect our nation's fishery laws, saving the North Atlantic right whale. And then plastics is one of our newer campaigns, but it's actually a campaign that I've been working on for a long time here because I did volunteer work with an organization called Surfrider even before I worked for Oceana. And I did a lot of volunteer work, passing plastic ordinances, working on plastics, doing beach cleanups, and education about plastics. So I'm very personally involved with this issue and passionate about it. I'm a stand-up paddler, and when I would stand up paddle in Fort Lauderdale in the Intracoastal, I would always end up with a mountain of garbage on my board every single time because I would just be scooping plastic and foam out of the waterways. So that's how I got into it, and that's how I started doing beach cleanups. And then after about 1 billion beach cleanups, you just want to tackle the problem at its source. So that's how I got into it. So we're talking about ending the plastic pollution crisis, and we're going to start thinking about it in a different way and shifting away from the usual suspects of recycling and cleanups and things like that. So, you know, plastic is a problem. The way that it's made, what it's made out of, it doesn't biodegrade, it builds up in our environment, it threatens marine animals as well as humans, and it's bad for our health, bad for the environment, and the estimated amount of plastic that enters the marine environment from land-based sources every year is 17.6 billion pounds. And that's 8 million metric tons, which is roughly equivalent to dumping a garbage truck full of plastic into the ocean every minute. So people often ask, how does this plastic get into the ocean? So there's a variety of ways. The plastic trash on the streets washes into storm drains that empty into the ocean. The wind and the rain can transport the plastic waste from landfills to streams and rivers, and also industrial facilities. So when the products are either improperly disposed of or lost during transport. So there are many ways for it to get into the ocean. You don't have to live right by the ocean in order for plastic to get there. And we know in Florida, we have all of these canals that lead out to our intracoastal and our oceans and through the storm drains, and that's how the plastic gets there. So we know that marine animals often mistake plastic for food. So this is a photo of a sea turtle eating plastic. It resembles jellyfish, which are one of their favorite food. And we have a lot of endangered and threatened sea turtles here in South Florida. And unfortunately, pretty much all of the turtles are turning up with plastic from ingesting plastic. And the plastic isn't always ingested in these large pieces. They photodegrade from the sun and they break down and break up into tiny and tinier pieces, and they get eaten even by the smallest life forms in the ocean, plankton. There's actually videos of plankton eating plastic. So this is entering our food chain if people are eating seafood. And so this is affecting human health as well. And I do a lot of beach cleanups at Mizell Eula Johnson State Park. I'm there probably almost every week doing cleanups, and I have, you know, evidence of plastic being eaten by animals. I always find these plastic with these bites in them. So, you know, I can see the plastic that has been eaten by animals in the ocean, and this is very, very troublesome. So even animals like large whales are ingesting plastic. This is actually a sperm whale, and these are the contents of the sperm whale's stomach. And it was enough to occupy half of a tennis court. And you can see the two scientists that are in this photo who studied the incident on the court. The whale died because of the plastic bags and the plastic items that it ingested. These are all mostly plastic bags and plastic sheets. So this is a bird from the Midway Atoll. So these are islands in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, and these birds are called the albatross. And these albatross are all over these islands that are, you know, in the middle of the ocean, and they go out and they feed. They find plastic, they think it's food, they bring it back to their babies, and the babies are being found with plastic. These skeletons are found all over the island. These birds either choke or starve to death. Midway, it has skeletons all over the island like this, and it's very disturbing. So it's not just you know, animals that are in the ocean that are being affected by this, it's our seabirds as well. So this is what happens to plastic when it's in the ocean. So the plastic will float on the ocean surface. Like I said, that it photodegrades into tinier and tinier pieces, microplastics. So people often talk about ocean cleanups. It's very, very difficult to be able to clean up plastic that has photodegraded into these tiny pieces. They sink, they make their way through the water column. They've found plastic at the bottom of the ocean in the deepest, darkest places. Some are ingested by zooplankton and fish, sorry, zooplankton. I always say zooplankton, and some eventually ends up on the seafloor. So microplastics, and this is the gross part, have also been found in humans. So they've been finding plastics in human stool, and they're currently doing studies on how, you know, this is affecting human health. And if you look on our website, we actually have a fact sheet on plastic and human health and the different kinds of chemicals that are in plastics and EPS foam, and what that means for humans. So, you know, some of these plastics, they were either eating food that had been wrapped in plastic or drinking from plastic water bottles, and some participants had also eaten marine fish. So globally, companies produce more than 400 million tons of plastic every year. And people ask, you know, why is all this plastic being produced? What's driving this problem is a massive increase in natural gas liquids from fracking, so cheap natural gas. And this is feeding a similar increase in the production and use of single-use plastics. So as the oil and gas industry realizes that people are moving towards more eco-friendly things and green energy, you know, they're looking to fill the void, and unfortunately that's ramping up plastic production. So plastic production is expected to quadruple. This is the chart of how many million metric tons and the future growth. So it's going to be skyrocketing. And actually Pew just did a study, the Pew Trust, and the figure was that the plastic entering the ocean is expected to triple by 2040. So these are the type of plastics that we often find. So, you know, when we do beach cleanups and looking at these kind of things, it looks like 36% is packaging. So close to 40% of the plastics we use, and even a larger percentage of those ending up in the oceans, are single-use plastics. And so if we were going to try to tackle a piece of the plastic pie here, we would want to go after single-use plastics. A lot of those, the plastics that we use, you know, for a couple minutes and then throw away, and plastics that really we don't need to be using, we can find replacements or alternatives or reusable products for. So again, this is the largest industrial sector is plastic packaging, single-use material designed for immediate disposal. And like I said, I do a lot of beach cleanups, and one of the cleanups that we used to do every year was called the International Coastal Cleanup Day, and it takes place all over the United States, all over the world, and it's run by the Ocean Conservancy, and everybody usually downloads an app called Clean Swell, and they try to track what they find. So my son has even done this. He puts Clean Swell on there, and he goes on the beach cleanup, and every time you find a straw, you tick it, and every time you find, you know, a cup, you tick it. So basically it racks up all the data from everyone, from all of the cleanups that are done. And these are the single-use plastics that are most commonly collected at the beach cleanups: straws, stirrers, forks, knives, spoons, plastic beverage bottles, plastic grocery bags, plastic cups, and plates. So as you can see, all of these items are single-use plastics, and many of them were probably unnecessary to be used in the first place. So people often look at recycling as the solution to the problem. We know here in Broward County that we have a lot of recycling issues. I think, you know, Commissioner Beamfer had been trying to work on this problem for quite some time. He's been quoted in the media about the problems with recycling, trying to get our municipalities to buy in. But recycling is often the solution that people think of, but only 2% of our plastic waste is effectively recycled. And that is because only about 9% of our plastic that we produce is recycled, and you know, usually it's downcycled. So usually you can only make it into, you know, one other thing before it's thrown away. Only 2% can be effectively recycled into something equal or greater value. So recycling also does not keep up with the pace of plastic waste. So if we were to continue on this path and this trajectory of how much plastic we were going to produce, there's no way we could possibly recycle our way out of this problem. And another thing that kind of added to it, and you probably saw it in the film, was that we used to send all of our a lot of our plastic waste overseas. So we used to send it over to China and kind of let them deal with it. But finally, China said no more. So they instituted a policy in 2018 called National Sword. And National Sword banned the import of plastic waste. So it wasn't only us that was doing this, it was also the EU and other places that were being shipped over to Asia. So many countries responded by sending their waste to other Asian nations like the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, and those countries started shutting their ports to it and even sending some of it back. So all along, that practice was feeding the abysmal recycling percentages. So a lot of times people, you know, thought that they were doing the right thing, putting the items in the blue bin, putting it in recycling, the recycling truck takes it away. They had no idea that all of this waste was being sent over to countries that weren't handling it properly. And I often see as a talking point from, you know, people that, you know, this is another country's problem. We see Asia, you know, dumping these things in the ocean, and they don't realize that that plastic was ours. We were sending it over there. So, you know, we need to look at what we're doing, and a lot of nations are stepping up, and we need to step up as well. So incineration is often also looked at as a solution. That's also always talked about as waste to energy. So incineration is another waste management practice that's touted as a solution, but it's a false one and it's a dangerous one. And that's because burning plastics, as you can imagine, releases toxic emissions, including cancer-causing chemicals, and threatens people that live near incinerators. It threatens their health. Incineration is also a significant emitter of greenhouse gases. And here in South Florida, we are ground zero for climate change and sea level rise. And we need to think about the greenhouse gases that are being emitted from this incineration. It's releasing as much carbon per unit of energy as coal, and almost twice as much as natural gas. Finally, waste to energy incineration plants are often misrepresented to the public as a source of renewable energy. They're essentially burning fossil fuels that have been briefly used in another form. So incineration is definitely not an answer when we're thinking about coming up with these recycling facilities. And there was, I mean, all of these incineration, you know, solutions, you have to keep feeding it. So, you know, we really need to look at just not making a lot of this plastic in the first place and looking at reduction. So Jackie Savitz from Oceana, her quote is, "When your bathtub is overflowing, you don't run for a mop before you turn off the faucet. Recycling is the mop, and we need to turn off the faucet." So then sometimes people say, well, why don't you just not buy plastic? Just don't use it. Well, living without plastic is really, really hard. Even for people that are very conscious of this issue, like myself, sometimes you go to stores and there isn't a choice. There aren't a lot of choices of plastic-free items. So a lot of people look at their shampoo or their conditioner. It's very hard to find a bar shampoo or a bar conditioner in a store. Most of all of your choices are plastic. And the same thing with a lot of other products, your fruits, you know, sometimes, you know, all the berries that you buy, everything is in plastic. So it's very, very hard to do even if you want to. If I go to the store, most of the, you know, toothpaste are in plastic tubes. It's very hard to find a glass jar with, I don't know if you've seen them, but they're called bites. So it's a toothpaste that's a tablet, and you eat it and then you brush with it. It turns into toothpaste in your mouth, but there's no plastic involved. And the bites, actually I have them shipped to my house once a month, but do most people do this? No. Most people go to the store and they buy what's convenient. So we need plastic-free choices. It's very, very hard nowadays, even if you want to be plastic-free, to be plastic-free. So a lot of nations are coming up with these policies regulating single-use plastics, and they're becoming increasingly popular. I don't know if you can see this or if our pictures are blocking the right side, but you can see a lot of nations are stepping up. They're regulating plastic bags, foam, and other plastic utensils. And I must say, a personal anecdote is my husband is from England. We went to England last summer for vacation. We traveled all around England for, I think, 2 weeks, various different places. You know, we went to malls, we went to, you know, restaurants, we went to the coast, we went to London. I didn't see a single plastic utensil the whole time I was there, except for the United flight home. So, you know, the fact that we could travel everywhere, we could eat at the mall, we could eat in these restaurants and go all these places, and I didn't see a single plastic fork or single plastic spoon. So, you know, even the mall had, you know, real bowls and real silverware in their food court. So it's possible. There are a lot of places that are moving this way towards reusable or towards, you know, better products, wooden utensils, and we can too. So 8 states have banned single-use plastic shopping bags so far. This map is from the National Conference of State Legislators, and the blue states are the states that have bans. The purple right there, DC, that's fees or taxes. Unfortunately, the red is preemptions. So preemption, as you all are probably mostly aware of, I'm assuming because you're so educated about, you know, voting and things like that. Preemptions means, you know, taking away home rule. It's a ban on bans. So we are not allowed to ban plastic bags here in Florida. We have a preemption. Of course, we're trying to overturn that at the state level. It would be nice to be able to enact state legislation, but if they're, you know, not willing to go forward with state legislation, which is really the right thing to do, at least remove the preemptions to give us power to be able to regulate these things in our own communities, because it's our communities that have to deal with the plastic waste and deal with the way that we're going to dispose of things and recycle things, and it's our storm drains that get clogged with all these things, you know, when they're on the ground. So, you know, we really need to be able to have the power to regulate these things in our own communities. So many private companies and corporations are stepping up. There's this grocery store, Marks and Spencer, that have plastic-free produce aisles, and you know, green grocers and no waste kind of stores. There aren't a lot of them, but they're starting to emerge. Some hotels are getting rid of single-use plastics, so making sure that they don't not only use things like cups, straws, and other kind of single-use plastic items, but also you know, reducing the amount of, you know, those sample size, the travel size containers that you see in hotels. There's also some flights that are plastic free. So some of the first passenger flights without any single-use plastic just started taking off. So these are some of the things that we can do. And I'm going to start with federal and then state, and then local. So nationwide, there is a federal bill that Oceana is supporting, and that's called the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. It's HR 5845, and the Senate bill is 3263. And this bill would do a variety of things at tackling plastic from the source. So it would require nationwide container refunds. So there are very few states, although it's a great system where it's, you know, a deposit basically on the bottle, and when you turn them in, you get a refund from that deposit. And I've seen before, like when I went to Hawaii, you never saw plastic bottles on the ground, and they were not even put in the wrong, if they were put in the wrong, you know, the box and the trash instead of the recycling bin, somebody would always dig it out and turn it in for their deposit. So it would do that. It would do the bottle deposit. It would phase out certain polluting products. It would create a carry-out bag fee, which a lot of nations have. A lot of nations, if you don't have your own bags, they charge you a fee. You have to bring your own bags. Minimum recycled content requirement. It would improve recycling and composting. It would stop shipping our recycling waste to other nations. So we would stop shipping our plastic to nations that can't take care of it. It would protect existing state actions. It would put a temporary pause on new plastics facilities, which is very, very important. A lot of these plastic facilities are put in communities of color and low-income communities, and it's not good for their health. And it basically shifts to producer responsibility for the collection and disposal, and not putting it all on us. It shifts everything from blame and responsibility from the consumer to the producer. So, oh, let me go back there. So, so far in Florida, we have 3 members of Congress that have co-sponsored this bill. The first members to co-sponsor were Hastings and Wilson, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz just co-sponsored the bill on Friday. So now we have 3. I heard word from Ted Deutsch, Congressman Deutsch, that he would co-sponsor the bill. When I checked today, he wasn't on there, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So I hope to see him on there soon. So, you know, you can still contact Senators Rubio and Scott about this bill as well. So what we can do statewide. So Florida, again, they have some preemptions. The first one is plastic bags. The plastic bags, we cannot do a bag ban. We cannot do a bag fee of any kind. We can ban certain things on city property, city facilities, city contracts, or county facilities, county property, county contracts. So one of those things is foam. So expanded polystyrene foam, sometimes it's known in other terms, sometimes people call it styrofoam. There's a brand name Styrofoam, but EPS foam, so that's your, you know, your foam coffee cups and your clamshell containers and things like that. The foam, we cannot tell a store or restaurant that they can't use it or sell it. So we can't tell, you know, your grocery store not to sell foam cups. We can't tell the restaurant nearby not to use foam containers. But what we can do is we can ban the use of it on city property, county property, city facilities, and contracts. So if your city is having an event on city property and there's food trucks there, they could not be distributing foam items from their food truck on the city property. So, you know, it does decrease it somewhat. So there are many municipalities that have already passed ordinances like this, banning foam on city property, and there are municipalities that are currently in the process of passing it. So, we're still working on these preemptions. We had a Rise Above Plastics Tallahassee Lobby Day in February, and we went specifically for the issue of single-use plastics, asking our state elected officials to please remove the preemptions. There was a bill that would have removed them. It usually does not make it through a committee, unfortunately. So this is something, you know, that we obviously want to see state action on, and we will keep working at it and chipping away at it. Luckily, they also tried to preempt single-use plastic straws, but that failed. Thankfully, Governor DeSantis vetoed that one. So I was very happy to hear that, because I had actually worked on about half a dozen single-use plastic straw ordinances here in Broward, and I was very scared that they were all going to be reversed. So very happy that that was vetoed. So what can be done about these preemptions? You can ask your Florida state elected officials to fight to remove preemptions. Or you could ask for a statewide bag ban or statewide foam ban. Sometimes that's been proposed, but again, usually doesn't make it through a committee, unfortunately. And you can ask your city to pass some type of resolution. And many cities have passed a resolution saying that they want to have home rule on this issue. So what can be done in your Florida city? You can pass an ordinance requiring a choice. You can ban the use of certain single-use plastic or foam on the city property, city-owned facilities. You can ban plastic bottled water on city property, city facilities. So the Village of Miami Shores this year, in the beginning of this year, passed a ban on plastic bottled water on all of their city property. You can ask your city to add restrictions on certain single-use plastic foam in vendor contracts, festivals, events, marathons, pavilion rentals, something that, you know, Bal Harbour did. So anybody that's having a party in a pavilion on city property can't use these single-use plastic items. You can ban single-use plastic items that don't fall under the preemptions. So, you know, utensils, for example, those aren't preempted. You could ban single-use plastic utensils. That would mean that no stores would be able to sell them either. Right now, and that creates choice. So right now, if I want to have an event and I want disposable utensils, it's very hard to find disposable wooden utensils. I usually have to order them online. I would love to be able to go to my neighborhood grocery store and be able to buy more environmentally friendly utensils, but there's not a demand right now. So, you know, that's another option. You can also pass ordinances on straws. That's not preempted right now. You can even do straws by request only. So that's kind of a win-win, because you get a straw if you want one. You don't get a straw if you don't want one. And it actually ends up saving the restaurant money usually, because usually most people don't even need a straw. So it's kind of win-win for everybody. And these kind of ordinances, local ordinances, create a demand for plastic-free choices. So that's it. It's all down to what kind of future that we want for our children, for our oceans, for our planet, and for our health. And you know, this is the way that Oceana is tackling this problem. We believe in working at it from the source, not thinking about the end of the cycle, the waste cycle, but how are we going to, you know, not produce as much plastic, not use as much plastic, tackling it from all different levels, help from our government, corporate responsibility, not just putting it all on the individual and the consumer. So I'm open for any questions.
You're muted, Stephanie.
No, I just realized that. Thank you very much. That was great. Very interesting. I guess if there's anything you'd like to, comments you want to make about the, you know, if you have any questions for Cat, or if you have any observations or questions about the film, you could unmute yourself. And okay, Nikki?
Kat, I sent you a ton of questions.
Okay.
Obviously, I would have sent it to everyone, but that was not an option that we had, unfortunately. Stephanie gave me an assignment, what was it, a week or so ago, to review that film. And I actually looked at 2 other films, which I suggest later on, that complement. So whatever you can't answer now, maybe you can get the answers to all of us and to Stephanie's committee afterwards, but start wherever you want to. And okay.
I don't, do you have that in front of you, Kat, or not?
Yeah, so it's, well, I can see it in the chat. So it says, this film and the others did not make a strong connection between oil and gas extraction and production, whether for plastics or fuel, and its harm to carbon sequestration. Why not emphasize it, since it is the greatest component of climate change? Shouldn't there be a way to get producers to disclose their carbon footprint, water use, toxins? If the world manages to achieve zero waste and eliminate plastic packaging and things like straws.
Wait, that's the next question.
Okay.
So you may not want to go on to that yet.
Okay. Emphasizing the oil and gas extraction in relation to climate change. So I think it's a fantastic point. It's very important, obviously, especially here in Florida, but for the whole world. And a lot of people don't make the connection between plastics and climate change. Even some people I know in the environmental world don't make that connection. So it's always talked about in the waste portion, you know, plastic in our oceans and things like that. A lot of people don't make the connection. And I definitely want to stress that more, especially here in South Florida, to let people know this is a climate issue. Plastic is a climate issue. 100%. So I always put that in my talking points, and I'm glad that you brought that up. You know, and please help spread the word about that. Let people know it's not just plastic that you see in the ocean or on the ground. It's the whole process. And this is the oil and gas industry, which is why the federal bill does so much to tackle this problem. Putting a temporary halt on new plastic production facilities is very, very important right now, because, you know, once those are built and we start, you know, on that upward trajectory, it's going to be really hard to turn back. So, you know, that's why the federal legislation is so greatly needed right now. Producers to disclose their carbon footprint. Well, I think a lot of that federal bill does tackle some of those issues about looking into the producer responsibility and the types of materials they're putting out there. So certain polluting plastic materials will not be allowed. So again, I think the federal bill will do a lot for what you're referring to.
I wonder what the odds are of that getting very far. I don't know if we have any idea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to keep pushing and we're hopeful, but we'll keep pushing at it. I think this is the first bill of its kind like this.
Right.
So we really need to gain momentum and attention towards this problem.
I think there's a lot of education that has to be done. It was this, you know, as much as I've focused on recycling my entire adult life and how much the League has done studies and has positions and we're working on this issue, this movie really was very eye-opening because, you know, you're used to, oh, well, thinking you can recycle your way out of it. I didn't realize the connection between the oil industry, the chemical industry, and the deliberate plan that they have to really amp up plastic production and really push plastics, partly because my understand because with, you know, renewable energy, maybe, you know, they're making less money and this is a money-making thing for them. And there's kind of a parallel between this and almost like the tobacco companies when they are sitting at that table and they've really all talked to each other and knew what they were doing. And here we have these companies. So one of the things that really struck me was that there is a letter that I have a copy of and I spread it around from the plastics industry asking the federal government to emphasize during this time of COVID that plastic is safer. So really deliberately and trying to derail the progress that has been made in certain states and areas to ban plastics. And in fact, a lot of cities have taken this to heart and are, you know, kind of slowed down or temporarily reverse their bans, which is alarming. Because there's a New England study that New England Journal of Medicine study that showed that plastic, you know, there's no difference between, you know, as far as COVID goes, between plastic and that it's not safer at all. So it was, and the other eye-opening thing for me was, you know, we are blaming these poor countries for not dealing with their waste program. They don't have the money to do it, and it's all our garbage. And they've changed the total culture of the place, introducing single-use plastics to them when they didn't even live like that. So I think, you know, the more people that see this movie, the more awareness and maybe the more support you can get for the whole plastic reduction idea versus just, you know, just we have to recycle better. So I don't know if anybody else has any take on this. Or...
I've got 3 questions in my chat box. One is, and I had this question too, about incinerators, that incinerating plastic is not going to be a good thing to do. I mean, I thought they were putting caps or covers over to reduce emissions. Is that not true?
From what I understand about the waste energy, it's highly inefficient. So the amount of waste that you're putting in there and the energy you're producing, it's not worth it to say that, you know, just from the production standpoint of plastic, to say it doesn't matter what we produce because we can always just turn it into energy. It's not efficient and it does pollute. So, you know, it puts cancer-causing chemicals into the air and pollutes where you know, the neighborhoods where these incinerators are. And then once you have the incinerator, you have to keep feeding it. So, you know, the oil industry, the plastics industry, they want you focused on incineration. They want you focused on recycling. They want you focused on how are you going to take care of all of this plastic that we're producing. And we really want to get that conversation off of the incineration. It's all bad for our planet. So, you know, don't be duped by waste to energy, and don't be duped by the you know, conversations about recycling. We'll just build new, wonderful recycling, and then you can just use as much plastic as you want, right? That's what they want everybody distracted with. So, and for the most part, a lot of times it worked. They wanted people distracted with cleanups and, you know, recycling and waste to energy. And they didn't want people talking about how are we just not going to use this.
Okay. Another question was, do you think there's any interest in a bottle and/or can tax like some states have for here in Florida?
Yeah, well, the bill has been introduced many times. It was introduced last legislative season, and it never makes it through a committee.
And then thirdly, there's a question, is there a list of companies or products that can substitute for plastic utensils, plates, etc.?
Alternatives to plastic utensils?
Yes, plastic utensils, plastic plates. She's referring to the fact, you know, you see a lot of ads where they say, do this or don't do this, or eat this, don't eat this. Is there something that would be equivalent for making your choices when you're at the store?
Yeah, well, obviously the first good choice would be something reusable. So, you know, I try not to buy disposable things as much as possible, and I try to bring reusable things everywhere. Even when, you know, me and my friends are very, you know, environmentally conscious. So when we have a party, you know, a lot of my friends will say everybody's going to bring their own cup. So, you know, it's just kind of retraining your mind on that. You know, I had a Thanksgiving once where I asked my family, I said, we're not going to use anything disposable. Everybody's going to bring their own silverware. Everybody's going to bring their own cup. And we did. So reusable is the best way to go. But if you need to do something disposable, I like wooden utensils. So there's bamboo. Bamboo is really environmentally friendly. Bamboo utensils, but again, it's really disappointing that a lot of these things you can't find at your local grocery store. So a lot of these things I have to order online, and we shouldn't have to do that. We should be able to find these products in our local supermarkets. There's many times where I see a whole shelf full of plastic cups at the grocery store, and I can only find one bag of paper cups, if that. Sometimes I can't even find the paper cups. So, you know, pushing our corporations to give us some plastic-free choices, at least. If you're not going to you know, supply these products or give us these products, at least give people a choice, you know. If
Kat, when you go to the cities and you ask them to ban some of these products on city property, are you providing them, one of the questions they've got to ask you is, well, what do we do? Do you have a list of vendors or some alternative company, you know, some companies that they can order from that?
We don't have a list of vendors that we supply. We try not to focus on.
You just tell them that, that
recommendations. But the thing is,
out there, or?
Yeah, it's so readily available right now, and even very large suppliers that supply most of our restaurants here have a green line. They'll have their own green line if you ask the supplier, you know, their sales rep. So, and if you go online, there's so many environmentally friendly products now because so many states and cities have banned these things. So in areas where they've had these bans, you see more of these products available. I think some years ago it might have been more difficult, but now it's easier. We have an ocean-friendly restaurant owner. I used to volunteer for Surfrider, and we have an ocean-friendly restaurant program. And a restaurant can be registered ocean-friendly if they meet a certain amount of criteria. So things like they don't use plastic bags, they don't use foam, they recycle. Right. And we had an ocean-friendly restaurant restaurant owner on Fort Lauderdale Beach, the world famous Parrot Lounge, and he switched over to all plastic free. And he says, you know, some years ago it was a little bit harder to find things like paper straws and things like that, but he says it's so easy right now. He can order them today, get the, you know, he receives them tomorrow. There's so many different choices. He said he has straws made out of agave. He has avocado straws. He has hay straws. He has paper straws, all kinds of different innovations that they're making now because all these straw ordinances have passed.
Right.
So, you know, it's very easy. He finds, I think it's called bagasse.
Oh, yeah, they have a company up in Belgrade or something, but
Sugarcane.
there's no way to recycle it.
Yeah,
It's
and
Palace.
well, there's certain products that, and you have to, it definitely, don't be duped by, there is a lot of greenwashing out there. There's products that are labeled compostable, but only in an industrial facility. So that means it has to be at very high heat. So you have to look for products that are compostable, like in a landfill, that
So
will
if
break down
we're,
a
I
certain amount
think,
of days.
if you know, I think we need to do things individually, but I really liked your plastics training you did, and I would encourage anyone to join I think you said you're starting it again August 29th. It's a 4-session workshop on how to really be an activist in your community. And if you think big, as you're doing, you're going to different cities, you're trying to get them to actually, you know, if they can ban some of this stuff on their property and for their events, now you're talking about, you know, more efforts than just certain individual. And on our environmental committee meeting recently, someone mentioned a program called Healthy Hospital Initiatives, I think. I don't remember if that was it.
Right.
And the hospital districts in Broward, you know, big hospitals, maybe if we could get a county, as we said, we want to work on a county ordinance to that effect. I think that might include the hospitals too. And now you're talking about a lot of plastic. So I would offer to anybody on the call, you know, we're really going to try to work on this. Kat's doing a great job. She's going city to city, but we also would like to get the county. I attended a meeting today of this solid waste recycling working group for the county, just to bring you up to date on that. And all the cities in the county have gotten together, and they're having these regular meetings and trying to come up with a comprehensive plan for dealing with our waste and our recycling. And it's based on what a consultant's report. And part of this is actually including incineration. And I don't know if there's any way around that, and they may make a big investment in expanding or even a new incinerator to help. But I think once they get their basic structure set, I think it would behoove all of us to lobby them strongly to put in a plastic reduction component. You know, so all the cities are struggling, they have separate contracts, but hopefully there will be a countywide plan for dealing with solid waste. But we have to really start educating everybody, as you've been trying to do.
Yeah, Stephanie, there's one, Julie Long wants to make a comment, and
Oh yeah, Julie. Hi, Julie.
And Jeff has his hand up too. So Julie first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just talking. Okay, Julie, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Kat. To Stephanie, thank you for this. This is really great, but very discouraging. Comment you made, Stephanie, about litigation. I think there's definitely serious health problems with plastics. There's evidence biologically that atrocine's a chemical that leaches out of plastic water bottles. And when the plastic is heated, plastic water bottles go into warehouses and they sit there before they're distributed to stores. And I think it's very hard to prove causality, but over the last 20 to 30 years, the incidence of hypospadias, which is an abnormality of male genitalia, has increased dramatically. It's kind of an intersex thing. And atrazine in rivers, they've noticed that amphibians are turning from males to females. And I think we have to, that could be another approach. I think our babies are being poisoned. It's hard to prove that it's from plastic, on the other hand, it's definitely been linked in amphibians to the rise of plastics and other neuroendocrine mimickers. And it's in our water bottles. And I think people need to know this. I think, you know, if you look at what happened in the tobacco industry, there's so many parallels of what the manufacturers will continue to do whatever they can do to make money until there's some huge action. So
I'm glad you brought
Okay,
that
I'm
up.
going to, Jeff had his hand up next.
Yeah, go
Well,
ahead,
if I
Jeff.
could, sorry, if I just could address, it's interesting you said that because in 2018, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out with a statement. If you Google American Academy of Pediatrics plastics foam, you'll see it come up. They actually warn parents in serving their kids certain plastics, and I think it was plastics with recycling codes 3, 6, and 7, which includes expanded polystyrene foam. So it's interesting. I completely avoid foam. If I see that a restaurant or a drink place serves in foam, I don't go there. And if I go to a restaurant and they, you know, it's weird, even though my son's like 10, 11, they will sometimes bring a child a drink in foam because they think they can't drink from a glass. And so they'll arrive to the table with the foam and I'll send it back. And I tell them I don't serve my children items in foam. So I think if, you know, it's interesting. I'm working with the city of Dania Beach right now. On Tuesday, they passed an ordinance on first reading to ban foam on city property. And they were concerned about, you know, certain restaurants with banning foam, that's what people are getting their takeout and delivery in right now. And my thought automatically goes to, well, I'm not buying from those restaurants right now. I'm not contributing to those local businesses because they're serving in foam. If they switch to something else, I would buy something from them, but I'm not going to go order something from them if they're on foam. So they're losing my business. And there's a lot of people that are very environmentally conscious and health conscious that are not going to restaurants like that and not buying products in foam because they know the health risks and they know the harm to the environment. So I think if, you know, if we frame it that way where, you know, they're going to be attracting our business instead, then, you know, that's a good argument.
Jeff, did you want to say something?
Yes. I read that whole book article that you sent me. It took me about 2 days. No, I'm just kidding. I read all the red and blue letters, but it was a great article. And I saw the movie, which turned my stomach. I'm always looking for the big effect, and you know, I see that plastic bags is a great way of reducing a big bulk of plastic production, and a lot of states have succeeded in it. So eventually it's going to happen. And the other one, I put the question in about bottles and cans. I'm wondering why I've never heard of people organizing to do a bottle and can tax. And to me, that's a moneymaker for the state. So, you know, is your group considering you know, putting that on your mission?
We have a position on that, but you know, the bottling industry will not even think, you know, they influence the legislators, so it never goes anywhere, the bottle bill.
Okay, it's 5 till 6. I see one more hand, Carol, and then Linda, and then we'll have to call it quits. So Carol?
Okay, mine's just a comment. I thought the movie was absolutely fantastic because it switched the emphasis, and the fact that demand of plastic is not the driver. It's the supply from the oil industry that is promoting all of the push. And I just thought there were definite changes in the way you think about this problem in the film. So thank you very much. I'm not sure that's a question. I don't know how we deal with the supply, because those oil companies are out there coming up with every possible thing they can do to spread their product and do something. So if you have a comment on that, that'd be great. But otherwise, I just wanted to say I thought the film brought up some really good points for us all to switch our thinking a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I think the film is great for basically counteracting all of the talking points that it's another country's problem, it's not our problem, and you know, trying to dazzle us with dreams about just recycling everything. So the film is great for that. I'm also working with, I know you're going to be working on a county ordinance, which is wonderful, and I want to help you with that. I'm also working with the city of Fort Lauderdale to pass a ban on EPS foams, city property, city facilities, city contracts. I met with Mayor Trantalis, and Commissioner Sorensen is all for it, Commissioner Glassman. I spoke at the Fort Lauderdale Sustainability Advisory Board meeting the other night, and I'm very hopeful that they'll also be sending communication. I know that Stephanie, you sent a letter saying that you were in support of the foam reduction, so anybody that wants to get involved in these local efforts, let me know. I know the City of Hollywood is going to pass, I think, an ordinance on second reading at the end of August, so whatever, you know, it's hard sometimes at the federal, at the big level, and the state when it's been stalled so much, but if we can just chip away at the local levels, you know, it will make a difference.
Okay, Linda, one last question and then we'll call it quits.
Thank you. I'm sorry, just really quickly, I love what Jeff was saying about taking different aspects of this, and Julie as well, and focusing. The one thing I have focused that drives me crazy are the plastic egg containers. We used to have egg container cartons, and I'm just wondering if there could be a specific approach to the egg manufacturers, you know, a concerted approach. Get on board, you know, we like cardboard, and that, at least get that out. Ditto with the, you know, we've got all these food producers, all these agricultural producers here in Florida. What about getting them on board with cartons instead of plastics, and just trying to make a concerted, you know, letter effort to each of these individual industries to say that, you know, show them the facts of what you're doing and kind of break it down by sectors so that we've got a series of approaches. And the third thing I was just going to say is, and I understand what you're saying about the incinerators. Obviously, we don't need to give everybody more cancer and all of that with incinerators, but I thought that, you know, like they have with the with the coal producers, I thought there were ways of, and I understand what you're saying strategically, we don't want to say it's a problem in incinerators, but I'm just thinking about all these landfills that we have, at least in the short term. I thought there was an engineering solution to putting covers on that would recycle those toxic gases into energy. I thought there was a recycling part of that, so that it's not the end-all solution, but at least it's an interim, that we've got something that we're not continuing. You know, it's part of turning off the faucet is at least getting the engineering solution to incinerators. So we've got a stopgap measure. Anyway, thank you so much. This is also fantastic. But those are just 3 areas I thought we could think about.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to learn how to do those specific campaigns, whether it be to pass something in your city or county or target a corporation, again, Stephanie said we're starting a 4-part plastic advocacy workshop, and that is going to be starting at the end of August. It's going to be a 4-part series, and it'll teach people how to run their own campaign, pick a goal, and how do you plan your strategy and execute your campaign.
Yeah, that was excellent, by the way. Got a lot out of that. So.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it's 6 o'clock, so thank you very much.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
And please spread the word about this issue. And anyone who would like to help us with this campaign, as Kat said, you can get in touch with her or myself. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Definitely get in touch. I can talk about plastics all day, so
yeah,
don't
I think
be shy.
we could go on for another hour, but
yeah,
we won't do that.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take